The following are 6 of the scariest true stories posted on Reddit. Number 6. When I was a kid, we'd go to these beach cabins in Maryland, right by the Chesapeake. They were small, rustic ordeals with basic comforts, nothing fancy like TVs or air conditioning. 2 bedrooms and a cot in the kitchen, and my siblings and I rotated on the cot so that no one got too sore from it. A small tradition was that my mom and I would have a hot cup of tea before bed, in our summer jammies, and just our way of relaxing while everyone else went off to read or listen to music. Well, one night, I was settling onto the cot when she picked up the tea kettle to fill it. Out of the corner of her eye, I see her flinch, then say in a steady voice, "What are you doing out there?" My head whipped over to the kitchenette to see her looking out the window. Then she jumped back and started screaming for my father. Somehow he knew shit was getting real. He ran from the back bedroom and barely paused to see my mom point towards the left side of the house. He burst out the door and towards the left of the cabin. I'll be the first to admit, I ran like hell and baseball slid under my parents' bed because I was 10 years old and that's what kids do when they're terrified. I still remember the smell of the old wood and the feel of my teddy bear shielding me from whatever the hell was happening. I remember seeing my 14-year-old brother, who was then a medium-ranking karate student, following my dad out of the cabin at full speed. The rest of the story is just a combination of what I heard and what my family filled in for me. My father, a former Army sergeant and MP with a Bronze Star, managed to tackle that guy that had been peeping into our kitchen window. He put him in an elbow lock face down on the ground, and my brother standing sentinel over both of them while my mom ran to get the cell phone. Which, I should add, that we had only bought the cell phone 2 weeks earlier. This was in 1995 when those suckers had cords and everything. While my mom called 911, I remember hearing the guy talking. He was saying things like, "The Ouija board told me. I want the devil to suck my brains out. Satan is in cabin number 10. I have to get to cabin number 10. And so on. We were in cabin 3, over a half a mile from where he apparently intended to meet the devil. My dad kept a grip on him for probably a good 15 minutes until the cops showed up. The first thing out of the cop's mouth was, "Jamie, when did they let you out?" He had been released from jail just 2 weeks earlier, for arson. You know where he was standing when my mom was at the sink in the kitchen? Right beside the propane tank. Number 5. I had a party in my apartment with my friends from college. We had music, beer pong, drinks, typical party. Pretty low key, there were only like 12 of us, just looking for something to do on a Sunday night since we had Monday off. We live in a complex that has a bunch of rows of townhomes and a huge parking lot. It was about 11:30 p.m. and there was a knock at the door. Figuring it was one of our neighbors, I opened the door. There was a very pale, skinny, bleach blonde girl standing there. She looked sickly, like a serious drug addict. She asked if any of us had a lighter, and my friend Nick gave her one. She walked into our apartment and lit the cigarette in our kitchen while everyone stood there silently and awkwardly watching her. She stood there for a minute looking around, then abruptly said thanks and walked out the door. Her window was open, and we saw her walk down the steps to the parking lot and get in a car directly in front of our window, watching us. There was another girl and a guy in the car with her, equally sickly looking. We laughed it off and the party went on. Every so often, however, we would look out the window and the same car would be there, the people always watching us. This carried on until about 1:30 in the morning, when the 3 got out of their car and knocked on our door again. My extremely intimidating looking friend Nick opened it to see what the hell they wanted, and the blonde girl said with virtually no expression, "We just wanted to know if we could come in. You guys look fun, like beer pong fun." We politely declined since it was late and people would be leaving soon, and she got irate and started screaming at us that we were idiots. We closed and locked the door. They walked back to their car and watched us again. Everyone started to leave around 2:30 in the morning. The only people left were my roommate and I, and 2 20-year-old females. The car was still there, still watching. My roommate and I sat at the kitchen table talking about what we should do, and the car started flashing their lights into our window, which went on for a few minutes. We shut off the lights and closed the blinds, but peeked through them to see what was going on. The car sat there for a few more minutes, and then drove away. It was one of the most bizarre moments of my entire life. Number 4. When my wife and I had our old house built, one of the first things we noticed the night we moved in is that the house behind us had a square window that seemed to be right next to their toilet, but probably about 5 feet above the floor. We figured this was the case because at various times during the night, we could see just the profile of a dude's head there, He would stand there for like 30 seconds, and he would leave, and the light would go off. It became sort of like a running joke. Once in a while, we would just look out the back window and go, "Yep, Russell's taking a leak again." One night it was storming pretty badly, and the power went out in the neighborhood. I was just looking out the back window at the storm, and I happened to notice what I thought was the profile of Russell's head in the little window when lightning lit up the area. I had some funny thoughts about trying to aim in the dark and wondered why he wasn't peeing with a flashlight or something. Then a lightning bolt a full 5 minutes later revealed Russell's head again. What the hell? That was some epic piss. I ran and got my binoculars to see if I could figure out what was going on over there. More lightning strikes, and I was fairly certain Russell's head was still in the window, but it looked strange. Then suddenly the power kicked back on and my sights were filled with the image of a female mannequin head in Russell's window, facing directly at our window. Number 3. When I was a young child living in one of the high crime areas of town, I woke up in the middle of the night out of nowhere. This was something that never ever happened to me given how sound of a sleeper I was. I left my bedroom, went down the stairs, and passed the front door to get to the kitchen. After getting a drink of water, I turned around to go back upstairs to my bedroom. The front door was wide open. It hadn't been opened just a moment ago, and our car had been broken into a day earlier, so I was already on high alert. I stood, completely frozen, staring at that door for a good 10 minutes before I could bring myself to move. When I finally did go over and shut the door, our porch creaked in the background as though someone was walking on it as I closed it. It was the scariest moment of my childhood. I still get the chills just thinking about it. Number 2. I was out hunting in northern Ontario. No roads except for logging roads within 130 kilometers. I was late on the bear season, so no one was out hunting in my quadrant. I found a nice campsite along a river and hunted from there. On the second day of my hunt, I came across bear tracks, and I tracked it for about 2 hours, and then turned around. This is when it got very weird. I always track on one side of the tracks and return on the other. About 200 meters down the east side of the tracks, I ran into another human footprint which disappeared across the trail into the woods on my west. My dog didn't seem to smell anything, so I returned to camp with minimal concern. I got back to the camp around 7:30 at night and made a quick dinner and had a cigar by the camp. At around midnight, I heard a snap of a branch. After hunting for 20 years, only 2 things snap branches: bears and humans. I grabbed my firearm and a flashlight and went out after the noise. Every 100 yards I would scan with the flashlight. My dog freaked, started growling and advancing into the woods slowly. I pulled back on my leash to slow his advance and switched on my flashlight. I saw a pair of eyes looking right back at me. It stared at me for about 5 seconds and disappeared into the woods. On the walk back, I felt anxious, scared, and uncomfortable. I could feel someone watching me. The next night, the same thing happened. My dog went wild. Like I have never seen him. He was whimpering, growling, and clearly very anxious. At this point, I was terrified. I didn't go hunting that day and didn't close my eyes once. That whole night, I sat up with my flashlight constantly scanning the tree line. I guess I dozed off around 1 and woke up again at 3. I was sweating, confused, and very scared. I scanned the forest, and just barely visible about 25 yards in the forest, there was a man and his dog looking right back at me. I started to approach him, shouting to him. I got within 10 feet. He looked awfully disheveled and stank. The worst part about it was that he just stared at me, smiled, his eyes showing zero emotion, and whispered, "Good night." I ran back to my tent, packed it into my pack, and loaded it onto the trailer of the ATV and drove out of there. Number 1. Being the manager of a clothing store, I'll sometimes help out the other stores too. A few weeks ago, I was asked by my boss to work a night shift at a store located in a different mall. I've never been to that mall before, and I figured working there would be interesting, so I took the shift. The mall closed at 10 p.m., and I left the store by 11 p.m. Walking back to the parking structure was kind of creepy. The concrete structure was dimly lit. There were still several cars left in the structure, probably belonging to mall employees. I had completely forgotten where I had parked, so there I was, aimlessly wandering the parking structure looking for my car. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw an elderly homeless man coming towards me. He asked me, "Are you looking for your car?" And not wanting to be rude, I responded yes. The homeless man nodded and beckoned for me to follow him. So, not really knowing what to do, I decided to follow. So, we walked for about 5 minutes across the structure and up a flight of stairs. Then he stopped me right in front of my car and told me, "It's not safe to drive on a car that's low on oil, you know," and then proceeded to walk away. Getting into my car, I noticed that it was low on oil. I have no idea how he knew where my car was or how he knew it was low on oil. And that's the end of this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see videos just like this one.